global agriculture has changed more in our lifetime than in the previous 10,000 years.
Once a company starts to see royalty collections from every seed, it pushes its genetically engineered crops to replace the native crops that farmers and peasants have grown over millennia.
It's about building back diversity into farming again. Building back all these complex systems which traditional farmers are so good at in maintaining, all these different factors, and maintaining them and keeping them alive on the farm.
ዋና ሚና ፍላጎቱ ነው። አርሶ አደሩ ፍላጎት አለ፣ ዘሩን ያውቃል፣ ማግኘት ነው ያቃተው ሰዓቱ። ይሄ ዘር ሲመጣ በግራም ደረጃ ነው፣ ኪሎ እንኳን አይሞላም።
haaluma xaafii irratti amma fakkeenyaaf xaafiin kun jira xaafii dhumtoomma xaafii durii jira xaafii diimaa kan jedhamu sun inni haala qilleensaa min dandamata.
We have to revive our seed, and to revive this seed is to sit with the elders to share their stories.
Across Africa, a movement with a radical aim is gathering pace.
ዘር ያው አብሮ ተባብሮ ስራ የራስ ሀብት ነው። የኔም አይደል የሷም አይደል የሁላችንም ሀብት ስለሆነ ተባብረን
Spurred on by a lost generation of farmers who've been sold a false dream, seen their soils perish, their costs rocket, and their nutrition suffer, these communities have called time on an imported ideology. Alongside local NGOs, they're pulling their farmland back from the brink and repaving their way to an ecologically sane, socially just, and nutritious way of farming, with the resilience of diverse crops and adoption of the original indigenous seed varieties. This film tells their stories, gives an insight into their journey, and is a user's guide to anyone who wishes to bring diversity-rich farming practices back to life. Africa is a continent steeped in agricultural traditions, and rituals and prayer reflect the great reverence for the natural cycles of crops, animals, and the seasons of the land. At the center of the majority of these farming cultures is the seed, a symbol of life and an integral part of spirituality.
In the first hand, seed is connected to everything. Seed is life, source of life.
Sanyi ilaalchisee waan inni nagaa machiisa yaaf jiruuf jireenya kootin biddeena gaarii nyaachuudhaan daabboo gaarii nyaachuudhaan waa irraa argadhe tokko gurguradhee oomishee gurguree beeksisa kootiif qarshii qaburree ol kaawwachuudhaan kana nagaa machiisa ijoollee too barsiisudha.
In the sense of farming and agriculture, for the farmer, the seed is the start of agriculture. It has been because of farmers have domesticated crops, have made crops, have created crops over thousands of years. We now have all this diversity of food on our table.
የሀገሩ ድር ባህሩ ይሄ ነው
የምንገበው ህይወት እስከሆነ
ተሰርቶ ስለሆነ የምንመገበው
ህይወት ነው ህይወት ነው
ካለና ወይ ምን አለና ተስቆሎቶ ይበላል እንደዚህ ይበላል ያው ተማሳ ላይ ታይዞ የተፈጠረ ስጋ ነው ይሄው ነው መግባት ይሄ ተጠፋ ሰው ለመቆም አይችልም
Most communities in Africa, agriculture itself is characterized by small-scale agriculture, and small-scale agriculture is based on diversity.
The moment you show diversity for the farmers, particularly the Ethiopian farmers, they die on it. They grab and die on it. They like diversity enormously because they know very well it is the diversity that makes the life of their production continuous.
እሱ ባቄላም ስንዴም ሽምብራም አተርም ብዙ ጥቅም አላቸው ባቄላ ሁሉ ለምሳሌ ፕሮቲን አለ ስጋን የሚተካ ስንዴም እንደዛው ኃይልን የሚሰጥ ምግብ ነው ጤፍም እንደዛው አንድ ላይ ለመቀየጥ ግን ለአሰራሩ ስለማይመች ነው ሁሉም ጠቃሚ ምንት እህል
ጠቀኝታው የምናስብበት የተለየ መሆኑ ቆንጆ ነው ለምን አንድ አይነት ቢሆን ከዘራ ጠፋ ያው የጠፋ ነገር ቅድም የተረጎምኩት ሊሆን ይችላል ሶስት አይነት ቢሆን ዘንድሮ ያየሁት ያኛው ደግሞ ይቀየራል
ushaka mbeu na mpaso na zifo ndizo tuzotangana nao ngauri richita zifo mbeu ndiye ineripa mukano wauri zino ndosika chimoni chauri ndiliwe kana ndipasiwe ngazo
and so seed in fact for most of human history except in this recent period have been understood as a symbol of life and therefore have been embedded in the cultural and spiritual practices of communities around the planet.
In the mid-90s, a group of prominent African environmental campaigners joined forces to address the issue of rapidly decreasing seed diversity, a known indicator of food insecurity. What they'd noticed was that the erosion of agriculture and of seed went hand in hand with the erosion of traditions and rituals. Many communities were effectively stuck in limbo, with the effects of the 20th century leaving communities fragmented and individuals feeling less able to take charge of their lives. From experiences in parts of Africa and the Amazon, they already knew that building back these ancient agricultural systems was not a process which could be rushed. Their work would instead begin with a humble expectation: to gather the knowledgeable elders of the community, the men and women whose lives and experiences have been most heavily shaped by their traditional way of life, to give them the space and time to allow their stories to surface, and to walk with them on a journey to reconnect with what they had lost.
Sometimes NGOs come in and come into the community with almost prescriptive ideas on how things should be done. And I would argue that's almost always wrong.
Farmers normally in our place, if they found you cheating one time, they don't believe you again. But if you prove to them they are true to your word, prove to them again they are true to your promise, then they respect you, naturally.
I mean, you need to convince them that you are there to learn from them. And then step by step, you need to develop trust.
This was a long journey where we sit with elders learning and also looking at the challenges we're facing about the erosion of the really local indigenous seed.
You know, one thing that's sure in the community is that nobody has a full knowledge or a complete knowledge of the history of the community, or the knowledge about the landscapes, or the knowledge about the intricacies of the culture of the community. So when they come in dialogue, it's like fitting those mosaics, you know. So they make the memory complete.
That knowledge was vanishing. It was a knowledge which only small community, small families doing it hiding because of these other forces which were saying that our seed is wrong, our seed is not what.
If you ask them about seed, definitely, to my experience, they will tell you that seed is your life. And in order to live sustainably, in a healthy way, in order to get strength, both your mind and body, you need to really respect and learn about it. And then they will take you what they do in practice.
So it's a question of a dialogue, a constant dialogue. It's often an issue of reappreciation of local knowledge, and in that case, there is still in many cases a lot of diversity available. It's a question of recuperating it. It's a question of having dialogues and conversations, and connecting the elders with the young people, and making sure that this knowledge and those seeds, which were often hidden from the view, again become in the center of the community.
As the dialogues deepened, communities began to engage with the losses that they had suffered, and the swelling of interest began to spread from farm to farm. And so the process became ripe for the next stage, a form of community mapping, which brings the whole community together in a powerful ritual. Talking maps and calendars were first developed in the Amazon by indigenous communities of the rainforest to express their complex worldview. The process is usually split into 3 stages. First, the maps and calendars of the past, which draw out memories of the ancestral order, where community, ecosystem, and farmland were more balanced and self-sustaining. This map forms the baseline for comparison with the second map, which represents the present time. Often a shocking image of disorder, where colonial influences, from missionaries to McDonald's, have led to the demise and even the demonization of their traditional cultures. Finally, the map of the future, which gives an opportunity for thoughtful contemplation about the role that they can play in deciding the fate of their land and lives.
Eco-map is the map of the whole territory, involving all the life which is there on the land.
The community can come together to draw their own map, to track their history, and then to deal with challenges that they have, and to craft the future.
It's like a way of understanding that the future is not something that is going to happen in a long time, and that they don't have the power to actually restore and build the future that they want. But it's comparing the past, seeing the present, and just being able to see that they are already building their own future. Because when you see people singing and dancing and telling stories instead of pointing geographical places, you could see that the maps and the territory is much more than a couple of rivers or a couple of mountains or a couple of sacred sites. It's about the ancestors and the memory and the history that holds the territory.
Nasamsano utanda ndobona uri uzula pasi aziko tusa chitu nga uri riko chinyalelwa mashongo asho chinyiwa te na madaka asho akoremekanyiwa akubvisiwa.
Eco-calendars are created alongside the mapping process. They enable the community to express their cyclical understanding of time and how it changes the landscape over the year.
We learned to confine our life system into months. You see, the indigenous way of understanding calendar is not like this.
In each season, there are different rituals, there are different tasks and things that human beings do, and there are different manifestations of nature, and the stars changes. So the ecological calendars bring movement to the territory. So it's a complement for the maps.
When did you get this type of wild fruit? When did you get this type of wild green? Where was water? How the rain was coming?
There might be rainy seasons, long or short or medium. There might be drought seasons, and there might be intermediary seasons. So according to that, indigenous culture, in most cases, do their activities according to ecological calendar.
The time when the ants are collecting the food in dry season to store is the time we, the children and the elders, we are together there, collecting the harvest and making the dry food and storing the seed and the dry food and sit and wait for the new beginning. When we open the storage and go to plant, is the time also when the animals are coming out and when the insects are coming out and when the seed which was buried on the soil is coming out, they germinate together. Then this is the knowledge which we learn from the ecological calendar.
You cannot restore what has disappeared completely, and that is a threat to diversity-based agriculture. If the seeds are absent, which has occurred in many places, a return to previous methods can look impossible. Faced with this problem, there are various ways which allow locally adapted, appropriate seed types to be discovered and returned to communities.
What often happens if you talk with farmers, if you come into communities, is that the first observation is that there's not much diversity left. That depending where you are, there's a tremendous uniformity. The government has promoted certain crops, the government has promoted certain varieties which they give to farmers, etc. The chemicals, the fertilizers, etc. However, when you then sit down, and especially you talk to the elders in the villages, which very often have the more holistic and integral knowledge about the farming systems. If you talk to the women especially, who are responsible in most communities for selecting the seed, for maintaining agriculture, for actually developing the agriculture, the cooking and the quality of the food, you find that there's a lot of information, there's a lot of seeds still available. Some of them are hanging somewhere in a bag in the back of the kitchen. Some of them are in hands of farming communities which still use them but not prominent. Sometimes there is a certain fear by local farmers to show you those seeds because they have been told for so many years that using these old seeds is backward.
In most of local communities, there will be some farmers who have those seeds. I mean, if you really scout, you'd get those farmers who have reserved those seeds.
Then the old women, they were the ones who were still having the seed, hiding them in their kitchens. traditional kitchen.
In many cases where there has been extreme erosion of diversity, which in many cases has been happening, depending on the area where you are. What very often works very well is by putting people in touch with each other. This is all about helping, supporting, promoting conversations between different communities, and sometimes even in faraway areas. And if these farmers talk to each other about their seeds and about their needs, very often these connections are always made. Traditionally, the whole basis of agriculture has been the exchange of seeds between communities.
Maybe you can encounter an environment where no farmer has those things. So the most important thing is, again, to look for examples in other communities who have managed to store in the lakes, in whatever, all those knowledge. Yeah? When we talk about seeds, we talk about also knowledge. Knowledge starts from choosing from the farm and getting them into the house. Whose role is to conserve those seeds? Mostly in our case, it's a woman. So how do they do it? How do they select it from the field? How do they conserve it? What kind of measures do they use? How do they treat the seeds before they plant them?
In most traditions around the world, we have women to thank for the diversity of food on our plates. Traditionally, women are the custodians of seed, which they store and save and produce for rituals as well as for farming. In the household, they select the seed for planting the next season, ensuring that the diverse needs of the family are represented in the next season's crop. Sadly, across Africa, the role of women has been systematically undermined through the colonial process, and even more so with the arrival of cash crops, which were actively marketed to men. Working closely with women, and in particular the elders, is of utmost importance to allow their knowledge on seed to come forward and their confidence to grow with it.
The responsibility is allocated from different people. That there is a responsibility of men, there is responsibility of women. The selection is put on the hands of women, and they're the one who know. And when you grow up to become a stage of women who can select seed, when you look at different seed, you will know what type of seed which can produce to grow.
Kenya gabaleen alaayaa ina marrata in galcha haala gaadhaan oomisheetu xolfida daabbotan ta'e tokko daabboon isaa shaggaadha. Biddeen tokko biddeen isaa bareeda shaggaadha. Immoo kan biddeetiin ta'e tokko kun kara gabaan waa ta'u kuni biqilatti naa gaariidha. Kuni muuqitti naa gaarii enne gaheen keenya marga keessatti kana ta'e.
The selection process which farmers use, and that's mostly the role many people forget of women farmers, they very often look not only at whether the production is high enough, but there are issues of safety, security.
And this role played by women is from storing the seed after harvest. Before storing, those women, they select the seed. And when they select, they also know how to store those seeds. And after storing, they also know when do they open the storage and go back to plant again. And this role is the responsibility of women. And also the food which come from all these different seeds. Because when we say the food which come with all these different seeds which we plant, we don't mean that we plant this seed and wait for it for months until it becomes food to be harvested. When we plant our crops, different crops which we plant, when you put them on the soil, the other thing germinates. and they are the food which you eat while the crop which you have planted is growing.
As the diversity of seeds and knowledge return to a community, so the practices, the rituals, and the roles begin to re-emerge. Although the details differ between cultures, the common thread inherent in these rich traditions is to further enhance diversity.
Seeds evolve. Seeds, through farmers selecting seeds, the certain types they want, the certain properties they want, by putting selection pressure on these seeds over time and over generations, they create a huge diversity of seeds in their fields. That is constantly evolving, and this is creating and adapting to new situations. If a new pest, for example, comes in, a new insect which wasn't a problem before, the diversity in the seeds actually knows how to react to this. And what will happen by the farmer selecting is that that particular problem gets resolved because the farmer selects those seeds which are resistant or which are tolerant to the particular pest.
ዘር የሚጠፉ ካይዘራ ሲቀር ካልተዘራ ከቤት ደግሞ ቢጠፋ ለመፈለግ ከሰው ልውውጥ ይለወጣል።
እንደገና በህሉ ተጎረቤታችን ይለወጣል መልሶ ያ የጠፋው ተቤት ጠፍቶ እንደው ምናልባት ተማሰው ጠፋታል እንዴ ማርገን ወይ አንዴ ታስፈጭ ነው ማለት ነው ወይ ታጠላ ነው። ያው ሰኝ ፊለ ከማን ቀቡ ባለም ወደ ይቻዳ አከ ሞዴል ገበሬ ተኮት ይላል ማባስ
For thousands of years, communities have rejoiced in sharing and exchanging seed between households, in local markets, even with passing travelers. This exchange doesn't just act to further the spread of good seeds within a community, but more widely, making sure that the genes mix in a complex gene pool, which unfortunately scientists have invested little time in understanding. Like the major arteries of the body, it's when these systems are flowing naturally that the whole system begins to breathe with vitality. Encouraging communities to regenerate their traditional methods of exchange will help to spread and enhance the seeds and the related knowledge.
It's all about establishing a good network in the first hand. Like for instance, there is various stages of seed saving, like in household level and in communal level. The most important element of traditional ecological knowledge system, particularly in seed, is spreading the risk.
ያው ሰኝ ወርሱን እፈንቀባነ ነበር ዘሪሳን አከታባዘኤ ኦላን ከሱን አርገቱ ነምበርባድ ወይንም ሚናየረ ሚናር ወልለወነ ወይንም ቀርሺ ደንረ ቀርሺኒ ሚናኒ ዳቦንታኔ ከረጋባዴ ሙሰን ኦልት ኩን ነበር ዘሪን አንዳቡ ጋሪቶ አምብደን ጋሪቶ ኩን ቀርሺ ጥኖ ኦልካፍ ጀዱን ነራይረ ኦላን ቢተተረ በይ ከነከና ኩን ጋሪ ዳና ከና ኩን በሬዳ ነራን ኦልፈተኒ ጀደማ ይሳ nan kenna unkan ollaki yafdis aka akbabitit na bayidap gudda runtein kana lama udun kenne fi barad futti madabara tokko ta'a inni homo olla achana okasit sajni abazo ndendeni.
So seed fairs and seed exchange through markets, exchange of planting material, humans have been doing this throughout human history, and it's been absolutely essential to developing the amount of genetic diversity that's available.
The role of markets, of local markets in exchanging seeds could be strongly enhanced as well. But again, by bringing in, we have worked with groups, for example, who have organized seed fairs using local markets, have organized awards and prizes for those who bring in most diversity, etc. And that very often creates a situation where just by, again, using the local knowledge available, the local seeds available, even if they come there from far away, creating networks, seed exchange networks, almost always means that you bring in diversity also into the places which had totally lost their diversity.
Farmers, as I told you, used to exchange through their social relation and then through exchange system. Now, in the same manner, we can spread our risk through networking.
Although the emphasis of this work has been on nurturing traditional methods of farming, there are various low-tech innovations which can help farmers further the maintenance and spread of diverse seed networks. Most notably, a form of seed storage within communities, described as a community seed bank complex, can be considered as a method to promote security and establish farmer-led breeding programs. In Ethiopia, the farmers of the Ejere community have developed a successful system to enhance the exchange mechanisms already in use by the farmers.
እንግዲህ በህብረተሰቡ እንደመቋቋሙ ህብረተሰቡ አርሶ አደሩ የሚፈልገውን የዘር አይነት በሚፈልገው የዘር መጠን በዘር ወቅት ለማግኘት ያስችለዋል።
Community gene bank is a gene bank of the community of the people, of their own seed, and at the same time, it is very close. No bureaucracy in acquiring the seed.
አንደኛ ነገር ዘሩ የተለያየ ዘር ነው። ያው በወቅቱ የሚመጣልን ያው በሰዓቱ የሚዘራውን ያው አዲስ ዘር ነው የሚመጣልን ለመሬቱ የሚመች ማለት ነው። ሁለተኛ ነገር ደግሞ ያው ማዳበሪያ ቁጠባ ይቆጥብልናል።
ይሄን ነባር ዝርያ እንዴት መሰለ እየተንከባከብን ያለ ነው። ያው በማህበር ተደራጅተን ዘሩን ለማቆየት ነው ትልቁ ዓላማችን። ይሄን ዘር ስናቆይ ምንድነው ምርምር እናካሂድበታለን። የመስክ የምርምር ስራ አለን። ከአንድ አመት እስከ 3 እና 5 አመት ድረስ በተደጋጋሚ የሚቆይ ምርምር እናካሂዳለን። ይሄ ምንድነው በመደብ በብሎት እንሰራውና የተሻለ ዝርያ በዚህ በ5 አመት ተከታታይ ምርምር ወቅት ላይ የተሻለ ዝርያ ነው ብለን የምናገኘውን ዘር በቀጣይነት ያሰፋን እየተጠቀምንበት ነው ያለነው።
Farmer-led breeding programs and community seed banks can be very effective tools, but it shouldn't be assumed that they are better or more effective than traditional methods alone. Sometimes they will be useful, other times not, and choosing when and where to use them is a vital step to avoid wasting community members' time, resources, and expectations.
I've seen cases where, enthused by the idea of community seed bank, NGOs came into a village, helped them building a local seed bank, and coming 5 years later back to that seed bank, and that seed bank would serve basically as a distribution center for hybrid seeds, for industrially produced seeds. That means that something went wrong in the process when thinking about local seeds use. It's central, and it's important not to forget that we always have to start with the local knowledge and the local power which is available within the community.
For 10,000 years, women and men around the world have been gradually creating crop plants of staggering diversity. Over the last 100 years, that diversity has been ravaged. In Europe and North America, indigenous locally adapted seeds have all but disappeared. In Asia, the Green Revolution put paid to hundreds of thousands of locally adapted seed. And in Africa and South America, the story is not much better. Now is the time to rewrite that story.
We have found the seed. We are taking this seed to plant them again. People are reviving the way of storing the seed in a good, healthy way.
It is about adaptation, it's about making use of local knowledge, it's making use of local resources, the local seeds available, adapted to the local soils available, etc. Where there's a tremendous amount of flexibility, of adaptability, which is what we need to be able to also feed the world in the future.
ዋናው ሚና ፍላጎቱ ነው። አርሶ አደሩ ፍላጎት አለ፣ ዘሩን ያውቃል፣ ማግኘት ነው ያቃተው ሰዓቱ። ይሄ ዘር ሲመጣ በግራም ደረጃ ነው፣ ኪሎ እንኳን አይሞላም። ዝርያውን አወቁ፣ ግን ወደ ትልቅ መጠን እንዴት ያህል መቼ ይደርስልናል ነበር የተባለ። ያው ጊዜ ጠብቆ አሁን ከግራም አንስቶ በብዙ ኩንታል እያንዳንዱ ዘር ሆነ።
እዚህም በውዙ ተባደረው ማቸሮ ati ndora no ndaba ndi ane ndo noli mambewu yoralo ndi ndota bamwe bakufanga ndala